You're watching National Streaming Sports. Over 20 podcasts, 70 shows, and a 3.5-star rating on Roku TV. Check out nessp.info for direct links and deals on the site BetUs for 125% off your first three deposits in NFL and college odds for upcoming games, Major League Baseball and NBA futures, and boxing wagers. Also, check out Fanatics, sportswear for your favorite teams, and also network merchandise, retro, Northeast Streaming Sports, National Streaming Sports, Big Football, and the Mac and Jack Sports Show t-shirts. Coffee mugs are coming soon. Check it out.
You're watching Mac and Jack on National Streaming Sports.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, or your first look at sports on the Roku channel. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack. And, you know, Jack, we're going to take a look at the Monday night games because we really haven't had a shot to break them down. I got a couple things I want to get your opinion on. We'll look forward to Thursday night's game, talk a little bit about the MLB playoff race. Well, at least we'll break down some of the games. And, of course, I want to touch on Brett Favre a little bit. A couple other things that we got time at the end of the show. But first, I want to send out a shout out to Coach Bono Mago, or Bono Mago, I should say. They call him Coach Bono. Interviewed him yesterday. Unbelievable special teams coach. Was with the Lions, the Jaguars, the Dolphins, the Rams, and also the Packers. He was down there with the Saints during Hurricane Katrina. And in fact, he opened it up with a block punt the first game back. So, I mean, if you have a shot, go to YouTube, check out the interview. If you have a chance, look up Coach Bono and see, I mean, top five special teams all the time. With Detroit, he was unbelievable. He had like 3 block extra points, block field goals, punt returns for touchdowns. And we talked a lot about, you know, special teams and how it affects the NFL and the plays and strategies of running a special teams. He just retired in 2023 from the Rams. You know, he was there for the Super Bowl, the Rams versus the Bengals. He was part of the roster there. So I'm very honest. He also was head coach at Central Michigan University, where he was an alumni of. So we talked about that too. Very honest guy, very open guy. Talks about the things he did good and what happened bad. So he's very honest, great interview. So, Jack, let's get to the Monday night games. We both picked Cincinnati pretty much to beat Washington with 9 points. I guess the Washington's offense had other plans. Is Jaden Daniels looks like he's coming along now. I think he only threw for 1 touchdown, but he threw for over 300 yards. He runs the ball in. He's putting the team down by the goal lines. He's hitting people on crossing patterns. I mean, he threw for over 300 yards. So was it Jaden Daniels in the offense, or was it the Cincinnati defense, Jack?
Well, I think it's a combination of the two. But if you were the Cincinnati Bengals, Mac, and right before the season began, you can make a deal. After 3 games of the season, you can be 2-1. Your schedule would be you're playing at home against New England, and you're playing at home against Washington, and you're playing on the road against Kansas City, but you can be 2-1, cut a deal, sign the contract to be 2-1. Would you have signed the contract? Probably not. You'd figure New England's a gimme. Washington's a gimme. That's my 2 wins. I'm going to take a chance to beat Kansas City in Kansas City because we can beat them there. That would be my thought. I want to be 3-0. Who would have thought in your wildest dreams that the Bengals would be 0-3 at this point in the season? Like we were talking about the show, what's with the Cincinnati defense? we were talking about Jamar Chase's holdout, T. Higgins, the injury, losing Joe Mixon, that running back, the offensive line maybe being a little questionable at times, Joe Burrow trying to get back at form at quarterback, but no one focused on the Bengal defense. And Jaden Daniels came in. He looked like a pro's pro. This was a breakout game for Jaden Daniels. And Jaden Daniels was so good, Mac, that before the show we were talking about and even questioning, should the Bears have taken him instead of Caleb Williams? And there's not enough of a body of work to say one way or the other. Let's be honest about it. But Jaden Daniels seems to be loved by his teammates. He's not bickering there. Even his teammates are saying it takes time to really be a good quarterback, but we love this guy. And you can tell it's genuine. Not that the Bears dislike Caleb Williams, not that there's necessarily friction there, but you can sense there being a tiny bit of immaturity in Caleb Williams. Maybe just a little bit, but it could get straightened out. It doesn't look severe, at least at this point. And it was a coming out party for Jaden Daniels. If Jaden Daniels goes on to have a great career in this league, this is going to be the game that really propelled him, that started him off. He really looked great, on the big stage.
I agree with everything you said there. In fact, he did have a touchdown pass to Terry McLaurin. He finally started getting the ball to him. He had 4 receptions for 100 yards. McLaurin did. He had a little dump off to the offensive lineman, so he threw for a couple touchdowns. Jaden Daniels reminds me of RG3. He's not as tall, but he can run and he can pass. He had that one great year. But Jaden Daniels is going to have to understand, as the season goes along, that running with the ball that he does a lot, he's going to have to temper that back, Jack, because he's not a big kid. He's a small frame kid. And even Caleb Williams, who's not the biggest quarterback, he got racked a couple times. And even the quarterback that he played against in the game there for Chicago, he came out and he said, listen, you can't take those hits, man. You've got to get down. And that's the biggest thing I have a worry with any kind of quarterback, Jack, that runs a lot. And Jaden Daniels does run a lot right now.
Well, there's another element too. He does, but it's kind of hard to avoid at times. But you look at certain of these rookie quarterbacks who join a franchise, and they give a city a lot of hope. And Jaden Daniels has given the Washington Commanders fan base tremendous hope. There's a certain joy in their fan base. They have so much to look forward to now. And you take with the Chicago Bears with Caleb Williams, you don't have the same energy with their fan base right now. There's more like question marks. There are no question marks with Jaden Daniels. No one's sure how good he's ultimately going to become. But he's bringing tremendous enthusiasm to their fan base right now. And they're patient with him. Jaden Daniels could have a couple of bad games, and the fan base is going to say, well, he's a rookie. He's this. We're with you. We got you back. He's learning. But you get the feeling with Caleb Williams, he can't even afford a bad game. Now, as unfair as it's going to be, because the fan base is already getting a little edgy. But I'm going to give Caleb Williams credit for this, Mac. He's got a ton of heart and a ton of confidence. And you could judge that by the amount of times he threw the ball. He threw the ball 52 times in the last game. And he even said, I can't believe I threw it that much. But that shows he's not timid. He's not scared. He's willing to take chances. And I think that's a good thing on a young quarterback. Some people feel it's not. They're scared about interceptions, turnovers, reckless play. I like to see a young quarterback who's aggressive as long as they don't make foolish throws the way, let's say, a Will Levis has been making for Tennessee.
Well, Jack, I think if you throw the ball 52 times, there's a problem on offense. You should be at least trying to run the ball a little bit more. Anybody that throws the ball 52 times, any team that does that, something's wrong with their offense, right? I mean, you've got to be able to run the ball. One thing about Burrows I want to get to real quick here is there's actually people, even former NFL player comes out and says Joe Burrow is overrated or he's not having – listen, man, he's thrown 5 touchdowns in the last 2 games, no interceptions. He's at like 5th in the league when it comes to stats. To blame Joe Burrow for the losses at any time, and they do this, Joe Burrow versus, Jaden Daniels. That's not what happened there. It's Joe Burrow versus the Washington defense and Jaden Daniels versus the Cincinnati Bengals defense. I don't care if you're a former NFL player, analyst now. You don't know what the hell you're talking about, and you shouldn't even be talking if you're going to say stupid crap like that.
Mac, I'm glad you made that point. Quarterbacks are never on the field against one another. They're not directly competing with one another. It sounds good. We heard, Brady against Manning. It's not like a pitcher against a batter.
Yes.
It's not like, an active pitcher today pitching against Ohtani or against Judge, going mano de mano. It doesn't work that way with quarterbacks. There are too many intangibles there. Joe Burrow was a great college quarterback at LSU. That's why he went number 1 overall in the draft, and he vindicated that already. He took a team to a Super Bowl. His problem wasn't his play. His problem was, he got injured. And Joe Burrow had a terrible opening game against New England Patriots. He hasn't been bad the 2 games after that. Has he been one of the best quarterbacks in the league? No, but he's been okay the last couple of games. And they got to get straightened out. Look, I got faith in Joe Burrow. The Bengals, I'm confident they're going to straighten out at some point this year. I can't see this continuing. If anything baffles me on the season, any team, it's that the Bengals are 0-3. I just don't get it. Yeah. Mac, I just don't get it at all. But I think early in the season, we get a lot of surprises, a lot of things happening that we don't expect. But I think this 0-3 puts the Bengals in a hole. But is it a hole that they can get out of? Look, they're in the same division as the Baltimore Ravens, who are 1-2. They're only 1 game behind the Ravens. Okay? Right. Steelers are 3-0. You really believe the Steelers are going to be one of these powerhouse teams that are going to go 13-4? I don't think so. I think the Steelers are gently going to fall back, little by little. This is not to say they're not going to have a winning record. This is not to say the Steelers won't make the playoffs. But the Steelers are in the powerhouse where I'd be all worried. If you're in the same division with the Kansas City Chiefs and they're 3-0 and you're 0-3, you've got problems. I would really do a lot of worrying. But in this case, Bengals just have to take it a week at a time, scratch, claw, win this week, and then take it from there.
Yeah. I think that there is no way, even with the first 3 games, 3, that the Bengals are out of the playoffs just because they're 0-3. Buffalo, Jack, 3-0. Josh Allen, 23 for 30, 263 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4 rushes for 44 yards. Cook grabs a touchdown. Khalil Shakir, 6 receptions for 72 yards and 1 touchdown. The big thing here, and we didn't talk about this last week, Jack, with Buffalo as they destroyed Jacksonville. Of course, their number 1 wide receiver, he was called the number 1 wide receiver. Diggs moves to Houston. And now it looks to me, now maybe I'm wrong, that Josh Allen is using all his weapons instead of just trying to feed it to Diggs, who, by the way, is on Houston, who, by the way, got their butts handed to him last week. I think it matters, personnel, relationships in the locker room, relationships on the sideline, that maybe, just maybe, I'm not saying this is true, that maybe Stephon Diggs kind of aggravates and kind of gets people nervous and kind of upsets the flow on a team where it affects everybody, especially Josh Allen. Josh Allen looks cool, calm, throwing the ball around, handing the ball off. He doesn't care. He runs when he has to. He's sliding now. There's. It seems that Josh Allen is a lot more calm, Jack, than he was last year, and it's shown it during the games. They're 3-0, and I mean they got Baltimore coming up next. It's going to be a tough game to play. But listen, he looks like he's actually having fun and just laying back, man.
I just want to gently backtrack, and I'm going to answer what you said. Cincinnati's at Carolina this week. They're at Carolina, and Andy Dalton goes against his old team, Cincinnati. If Cincinnati can't win on the road against Carolina, they're done. They're cooked. That's just not to
Okay.
say they won with a few. They are finished. I don't want to
Right.
hear about chipping away this and that. It's pathetic if they lose to Carolina. I know Carolina upset Las Vegas, but don't tell me Carolina all of a sudden is going to be a viable team, that they're going to be 2-2 and whatever. But, we'll see how that turns out. With Stephon Diggs, when you think about guys, Mac, all prima donna wide receivers, if you and I had to sit down and make a list, we've never even talked about this before. I'm sure you and I could come to a consensus. Stephon Diggs would maybe be the number one prima donna of all the prima donnas in the NFL. The guy had a good thing going with Minnesota, kind of wanted out. He wound up going at Buffalo. He wound up getting a great contract. A quarterback cannot get harassed. It's very disturbing to a quarterback. We saw that happen this weekend with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. CeeDee Lamb was giving Dak Prescott a hard time. And even Tom Brady was saying, as the analyst, he didn't like CeeDee Lamb's body language. That's a polite way of saying, just shut up. You can't harass the quarterback in a huddle on the sideline. It's one thing you could come up to him on the sideline and say, I'm open. I think I could do this. You say it in a gentle way. The huddle belongs to the quarterback. He's the leader. If the quarterback can't take control of the huddle, he's not a leader. But the problem is, Mac, you get these prima donna wide receivers who are making big money, and they're thinking they're stockholders in the huddle. They think they own part of the huddle. And the huddle's got to belong to the quarterback. It doesn't mean the receiver can't make a suggestion now and then. That's okay. If you feel you can help. But to get mad at the quarterback, to glare at the quarterback, to act like you're unhappy in there and upset the quarterback, you're just throwing the quarterback off his game. Now, I like the type of quarterback, Mac. I don't know whether you agree. He had a miserable personality, but if Ben Roethlisberger in the huddle might say, screw you to the receiver, you glare at me, you give me a hard time, you're not seeing that ball. You're not seeing that ball. I'm not throwing it your way. But it's got to be the type of quarterback who commands so much power that even the head coach can't tell him off, like an Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers could say to any receiver, screw it, you give me a hard time, I'm not even throwing the ball your way. So just shut your mouth here. This is my huddle. And you play with enthusiasm. You do what I tell you to do. I'm willing to take suggestions from you and listen to what you have to say, but you do it in an appropriate way.
Sure.
And Robert Salah would never say to Aaron Rodgers, put him down for that. He'd tell the receiver, it's Aaron Rodgers' huddle. And with Stephon Diggs, I wonder if he's going to be more of an asset or a positive for C.J. Stroud. In all fairness to Stephon Diggs, right now there's no evidence that he's any type of negative for C.J. Stroud, in any way. We haven't seen that to this point. But you're right, Josh Allen looks so much more relaxed. And that was going on last year. He was spreading the ball around Josh Allen last year, and I guess Stephon Diggs didn't like it because, he had to be the man.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's Stephon Diggs is maybe with a more talented wide receiver crew than they had at Buffalo. I mean, the three receivers there are pretty good. Now, again, C.J. Stroud had a rough week, and that happens once in a while. That just happens. I mean, there's some games. The greatest have bad games.
Well, you have to consider.
But what I'm wondering, Jack, is that how do I put this right? If any receiver during the 80s or 90s came back to the huddle and started trying to tell a quarterback what to do, he may end up on the bench. I mean, you just don't do that. The huddle, that's who runs the huddle's the quarterback. There's no doubt about that. But today, with these wide receivers, they are so much in the limelight. There's so much press about them. There's so much money they're getting right now. They're getting close to quarterback money, Jack. You're talking 30-something million a year for a wide receiver. That's not far off some of the quarterbacks. In fact, maybe more than a couple of starting quarterbacks in the league. So with that money, I think they got that power, Jack.
Yeah, well, exactly, because of the way they're getting paid, it's astounding the amount of money. But sometimes a wide receiver can help a quarterback. It depends on the situation. I got Justin Jefferson at Minnesota. He's a team captain. He's been very encouraging for Sam Darnold, helping him out. Now, CJ Stroud had a great rookie year. And arguably going into this season, you could have even made a case. I'm not saying that this is so. If you put CJ Stroud on the top 5 quarterbacks going into this season, no one would laugh at you. No one would say, oh, that's ridiculous. They'd think, maybe you're right. We go Mahomes, Allen, Lamar Jackson. CJ is trending in that direction, very close. You don't need a Stephon Diggs to come and mentor him. You don't need that at all. But, as a veteran like Stephon Diggs could be helpful. Don't get me wrong. It could be encouraging. But at the end of the day, they want the ball. Right. They want the ball. And it's frustrating for these wide receivers. Think of, Wilson on the Jets. He went something like 8 games without a TD reception, Garrett Wilson. That's kind of ridiculous, a talent like that. Rodgers got the ball to him. I mean, what happened, Wilson came back to the huddle and he asked Rodgers for the ball. I mean, he didn't have a fit. One play didn't work. And Rodgers said, I went against my better judgment. You never target only one receiver. That's like a cardinal sin of a quarterback. You want to target everyone that's available. Sure. But he targeted Wilson. The play worked. They got a touchdown. But in a case like that, Garrett Wilson wasn't having a fit. That's okay. You're not showing up the quarterback. You come back, get me the ball. I really want it badly. And you get the sense that, okay, he wants it that badly. Let's see what he does. But Josh Allen seems more relaxed. Listen, what's going on with Jacksonville? 47-10. The wheels have come off, Mac. The wheels have come off. This isn't even a flat tire.
I was just going to get to that side of it. I mean, listen, I don't know. I talked about Dexter Lawrence when he first came in, and I warned everybody that
Trevor Lawrence.
We'll talk about Dexter Lawrence.
Come on. I think a giant pass.
I think they're related in some way. Trevor Lawrence, I kind of talked about when he came in, and I think the expectations were that he's coming in because he Clemson and, they had a national championship and blah. It's totally a different game, and his mechanics kind of bothered me, Jack. And I don't know if they've even fixed those yet. And at 0-3, Lawrence isn't playing that well. The defense was supposed to be a lot better than it is right now. And everybody, including me, I thought Jacksonville was a playoff team. Now, I'm not saying they're not going to go to playoffs because it's only 3 games and maybe it gets fixed. I don't know. But I do know that Peterson, who was supposed to be this quarterback head coach, it doesn't look good right now for him, right? I mean, if you're 0-3, if you end up 1-6, Jack, what happens? Does Peterson stay with the Jags, or do they pull the plug and say,
I think you're going to have an answer this week in a large degree. Jacksonville's playing at Houston. Tough game. Houston's coming off that loss, and Houston played very poorly, against Minnesota. Houston's going to be ready in this game, and they're at home. And I know Jacksonville coming off their loss. I mean, their season's basically on the line. I mean, they're 0-3. I mean, they've got to win this game, Jacksonville. And, of course, Houston coming off a loss, it's going to be an important game for them. And you're right about Trevor Lawrence. I mean, we just don't know. I supported Jacksonville giving him that contract because if they didn't give him the contract and he had a big year, you don't want him becoming any type of free agent. You don't want to play with the franchise tag. If the quarterback is the one position, if you truly have a franchise quarterback, you have to build your team around them. And I supported that with the Jags. As Trevor Lawrence was getting a little better, year by year. He was better in a little better in his second year than he was in his first year, a little better in his third year than he was in his second year, but he wasn't the quarterback we thought he'd be. But now he's not even as good as he was in his rookie year, the way he's going right now, and it's concerning. And Doug Peterson said everyone is in jeopardy of not playing or getting benched. And he didn't name Lawrence, but he said everyone, and the talk is Doug Peterson's job's in jeopardy, but I can't see the sense in ever making a coaching change during the season unless the coaches really lost control of the team. And for when you lose 47-10, Mac, how much control of the team can you have? Did these guys play hard or what?
It didn't look. If you watch the game, I was mentioning it to Linda, producer Linda. It looked like that the Jags, after the guy caught the ball, they didn't even lunge at his feet or try to make it. They kind of ran behind him, and it was like they were playing tag. I'm not saying that they're not trying. I'm saying that I don't see them giving the extra effort. I mean, you can tell when a defense is swarming, when it's going to the ball, everybody's hitting hard, and you maybe even get a penalty because you're hitting too hard and somebody falls, whatever. The point is, the Jags defense, I don't think they sacked Josh Allen once, if I remember going back there. I don't think that they kept Josh Allen in the pocket. I don't think that I just didn't see any kind of effort, Jack. That I
no fight.
Yeah, it kind of bothered me. It's like they got down quick. Now you got to make plays, man. You got to do something. You got to get the ball. You got to get the turnover. You got to make a stop. And it's like they just didn't look like a team that wanted to make a stop. And
we'll learn a lot about them this week at Houston.
Yeah,
we'll see the type of effort they put up in a tough game. Not the best team you'd want to go against if you're Jacksonville in the game. You absolutely have to win. And Doug Peterson, the Jaguar coach, is more on the hot seat, I think, right now than any other coach in the NFL.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Tomorrow's matchup, we got Dallas giving 5 points to the Giants at home. Jack,
the Giants at home.
Yeah, that's what I said. They're giving Dallas is giving them 5 points. So in other words, the Giants are getting 5 points at home. I'm a realist when it comes to the Giants, Jack. I got my Homer show now. I can just glow and tear apart the Giants or whatever I want to do. But listen, for the Giants to have a chance at winning Dallas, because their record against Dallas and Dak Prescott is awful. They lost like 40-17 and 40-0 last year. That's how bad they were against Dallas last year. And it hasn't, and the years over haven't been that good. I don't think they've beaten Dallas since Eli Manning was a quarterback, for God's sakes. That might not be true, but I'm just saying it's been a long time. The Giants are going to have to run the ball, and they're going to have to run the ball and take time off the clock, and they're probably going to have to jump off to an early lead so that they make Dallas one-dimensional. The Giant defense is going to have to play for 4 quarters, Jack. Not like Baltimore did in the fourth quarter. All of a sudden, the game's won, and here comes Dak Prescott tearing up the zones and giving Baltimore giving them that little soft prevent defense, and you can't do that. They're going to have to play and swarm to the ball the whole game, and they're going to have to be smart with their substitutions. I don't know, Jack. I listen. My heart, I think I want the Giants to win, of course. But in my head, I don't think they do. I don't think they may not even cover.
Well, both teams are 1-2, but it's a bigger game for Dallas because people expect Dallas to be there at the end of the season. The Giants could lose, and their fan base will have an attitude that you have. Well, I don't think we have that good a team this year, but if we play a competitive, tough game and do some good things, it's not so bad. But Dallas got to leave with a W. There's no way around it. There's no moral victories for Dallas. They're 1-2. They've lost 2 games in a row. And they've lost them at home. There's discontent going on in Dallas right now. We're going to see Dak Prescott obviously target CeeDee Lamb more because of what went on, during the week. And the Giants' offense pretty simple, even though they'll try to get Singletary going with the running game. And you can run on Dallas to an extent. It's Malik Neighbors. They're going to be throwing the ball to him a lot, and Dallas is going to have their defense geared around stopping Malik Neighbors. Can Daniel Jones get, the other receivers going?
Yeah.
Will they be able to block for Daniel Jones? But for the Giants to win this game, they're going to really have to do it on defense. I mean, they have a pretty good pass rush, the Giants, with Lawrence, Burns, and even Thibodeau. They have a decent pass rush, and they're going to have to put Dak Prescott under a lot of pressure all game for the Giants to win the game. And it's a winnable game for the Giants.
Oh, yeah, it is.
I mean, it's a winnable game. It's not like they're going against the powerhouse in the Cowboys. We don't know what to make out of this Cowboy team.
Yes.
We're not sure what to make out of them.
Well, there are holes in the Dallas defense, right? And it starts up the middle. They really don't have a run stopper, and they are small at the linebackers. See, again, as I said last week, Jack, my biggest concern, and I agree with you, Daniel Jones is going to have to throw to a tight end. I mean, he hasn't thrown to tight ends almost all year. He's going to have to get other receivers involved because they're going to roll the coverage towards, of course, to our rookie neighbors. But the Giants' defensive backfield is very young. They played okay last week. They still are giving up the big plays when it comes to a number one wide receiver. They're going to have to double. They're going to have to double CeeDee Lamb. They're going to have to roll the coverage towards CeeDee Lamb, which may open some other things up. So, I don't think that would it surprise me the Giants win? No. Do I think they're going to win? No. So, I mean, just to be honest, right? I don't think they will. If they do, Jack, and Dallas falls down to 1-3, I mean, talk about panic in Dallas. There's going to be panic.
Oh, it's going to be big news in Dallas. Keep this in mind about the Giants defense. They did okay against Cleveland in the last game. All in all, it was a good effort. In the game before, even though they lost to the Commanders, they lost on 7 field goals. They didn't give up a touchdown. So their defense played well enough to win, that game. So the Giants are going to go as far as their defense carries them, point blank. If Daniel Jones can just be average throughout the season, get the ball to Malik Neighbors a lot, and if the Giants running game could be effective, I mean, who knows? But if the Giants are going to make any type of serious playoff push, it's got to be Thursday night. If they're 2-2, they're actually in good shape.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you never know the way things can come together. But again, it's a winnable game for the Giants. I suspect Dallas is going to win the game, and I suspect Dallas is going to put their good share of points on the board. I mean, I can see Dallas covering, winning by more than 5 points. I could see something like a 27-16 type score that Dallas has a breakout game.
Yeah, and again, folks, I'll remind you, the Giants are a terrible home team. They're terrible at home, and I don't know why. They're better on the road. I would feel a lot better about this game if we were in Dallas playing right now and all the fans all upset and Micah Parsons at home. I would love that. And to beat them in Dallas would be awesome. But anyway, I think it'll be a good game too, Jack. We'll see what happens. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Let's stick with the NFL. I want to talk a little bit about Brett Favre. Now, Brett Favre has come out during the Ways and Means Committee hearing that he has Parkinson's disease. Now, not that I feel bad that the guy has that. I wouldn't wish any kind of medical issue on anyone. But there are some questions I want to ask you that seem a little bit funny to me. He gets all this money from the welfare department down in Mississippi, and he said he didn't know it was from the welfare department. He got millions of dollars, Jack. If you are ahead of anything, or if you are involved and you're getting money, millions of dollars from somebody, I would expect you would want to know where the money's coming from, right? I mean, nobody's going to say, okay, Jack, here's $10 million. Do what you feel right with it. And you say, oh, okay, thank you. That doesn't make sense to me, Jack.
Yeah, millions of dollars is another thing. I think most of us have gotten a tiny check at one point in our lives from somewhere and we wonder where it's coming from, like a class action lawsuit, but that's a tiny amount. I mean, and then we wonder whether we should cash it, whether it's a fraud, whether it's legitimately ours or not. But if it's millions of dollars and you don't know where it's from and you're cashing it, there's a problem. You better be ready to give it back. Put it that way. I mean, it's not a crime, I think, if you cash it. I think it's a crime if you don't give it back, if it's found out that the money isn't yours and you're keeping it. But I don't know if that's the case with Brett Favre. I don't know the specifics, and I'm not passing judgment on that on him. But the Parkinson's, playing all those years, taking all those hits, you don't have to play sports, to have Parkinson's, syndrome. But but let's face it, there are a lot of hits, there are a lot of concussions, there are a lot of this, there's a lot of that. And, and it depends how severe it is. I mean, he still might be able to manage it and have a nice long life, managing the symptoms. But that's football.
Yes.
That's the nature of football. It's a tough sport. I was reading a book recently on the 1986 New York Giants, all the physical ills some of these guys have had from playing the game, like Mark Bavaro, Phil Simms we had on our show once. He was undergoing so much pain. It's gotten better for him. He saw this pain management, person. But it's a price you pay playing the game. It's unfortunate. And players never look at the back end of it, how they're going to be laid on. I mean, if you're 28 years old, you're not worrying how you're going to feel when you're 60. That's 60 is so far off. You don't even give it any thought.
I agree with that, Jack. But to me, all right, again, common sense would say if somebody's going to give me $10 million, I want to know where the $10 million is coming from if I didn't. That's just common sense. Now, secondly, let's get to the second point. He spent some of it on his daughter's volleyball team's facilities. So he takes the money that he says he doesn't know where it's coming from and gives it to the college facilities for volleyball that his daughter was a player on. So that's kind of that makes I don't understand the sense of that either. If you're taking money where you don't know what's coming from and you're going to give it to a facility down there in Mississippi, I think it was a university. I got it here somewhere, but anyway, it was the college his daughter was playing on. Okay, so there's a personal thing he's doing with that money, which to me is wrong. You don't do that. If you want to give some of your own money, but if you're going to use that money, to me, you're like moving money around here. The third thing he did was he ended up investing in this CTE, the concussion, a place, an organization, a medical place that said that it could possibly have a cure for concussions. So to me, you could say that might even be a personal investment. That might be a stock option. If this thing hits, Brett Favre becomes very rich. He says he was doing it to help other players. Well, Brett, there already is commissions with the NFLPA that does this kind of stuff. There are already different organizations that are working on for the NFL and NFLPA that is already doing this. So again, Jack, it's a little fishy, these things he's saying that, I thought this would help a lot of people that, this company alleged, in other words, it didn't, had a cure from concussions. To me, that's an investment, Jack.
Yeah, I don't want to pass judgment again. It's a very legal area, Mac. I don't want to cop out, but look, Shannon Sharpe is getting sued by Brett Favre. The lawsuit was just thrown out. Brett Favre might try to continue it based on Shannon Sharpe making some claims the way we could make on this show if we wanted to. We could, cast suspicion, this and that. And it's kind of like a legal matter in that sense. That's why I kind of try to keep away from it because I don't know all the facts. And the courts are basically going to decide it. If the courts found Brett Favre guilty, then you could certainly comment on the verdict and give your opinion of what he did. But while it's up in the air and he's willing to defend his position in court, I kind of want to leave. Yeah, I kind of want to leave that angle alone.
Well, I'm just bringing up the facts of what happened here. I'm not saying that what's that, approximately 4, yeah. So yes, there's another thing that I'm going to save till tonight about this testimony too. This is facts that happened. This is what he said. This is what he testified to. So I'm not saying anything that he just didn't say during his testimony. I think that Brett Favre he's not been arrested. He hasn't been charged. This is just his testimony before a Senate committee. That's all this is. So, and you're right, the lawsuit has been thrown out because it was Shannon Sharpe's opinion.
But Shannon Sharpe felt he was flat out guilty, said it, and Brett Favre, went after him legally with the remarks. But it's
right.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. It doesn't look good for Brett Favre.
No.
I will say that. Like when you look at the evidence and everything, it doesn't look good, on the surface. I mean, that's all I'm going to say. But let's see what any courts decide and how it gets resolved.
We definitely will. Let's get to some of the games here, Jack. I'll preface this. Let's go over the games first because I got something to follow up with as far as baseball goes. Let's see. Detroit, Wenceel Perez goes 1 for 2 as they win 2-1 yesterday. Tariq Skubal, who was they're probably their best pitcher, has 7 innings, 2 hits, and 7 strikeouts. Detroit is definitely still, in the discussion. They beat Tampa Bay.
Whoa, Mac. Are you following what the heck is going on?
Yes.
Detroit has a two-game lead with a few games left to play. A 2-game lead for wild card spot with a few
they're in
games
the
left to play.
discussion.
And you said in the discussion, they're on the driver's seat right now, Mac. In the discussion, they're not in the discussion. If they were 2 games out, then they would be in the discussion. Not if they're 2 games ahead with
I think we did this Monday.
5 games or so to play. They have a 2-game lead and in the discussion.
I think we did this Monday. The same thing on Detroit. I love pushing your button.
Minnesota is falling. Minnesota's falling apart.
They're out.
The wheels have come off. Detroit and Kansas City are tied for that second playoff position out of the 3 wild cards. They're tied. And I'm going to tell you, I'm kind of proud of my Detroit prediction. I predicted in the beginning of the year they'd be in the playoffs, and then they were so bad during the year.
Apologizing. 2 months.
I was apologizing. What a bad pick. Me picking them to be in the playoffs, and now they come on and making me right. I'd given up on them. I said, "Wow, what a bad preseason prediction." Me picking Detroit in the playoffs, and you never know. You got to wait to the end of the year. So many of these teams that are so back, they just catch up. And some teams are playing really well. They fall back. It doesn't matter what you're doing during the season. It's where you are at the end of the season.
Detroit hasn't clinched anything yet, Jack.
No, but they got a 2-game lead. They could falter.
Yes,
and they don't have the tiebreaker. If Minnesota can make up 2 games, Minnesota would beat Detroit out. So, yes. Detroit by no means is a lock, still to make the playoffs. But Minnesota, they even lose to the Marlins yesterday. 4-1. What is with Minnesota? They're losing. They've forgotten how to play baseball.
Yeah. Minnesota's garbage right now. They're just garbage right now. That's all I can say about them. The Brewers won 7-2 over Pittsburgh. Of course, they're already in. Joey Ortiz with 3 RBIs. Kansas City wins in the 10th over Washington. They should be able to beat Washington if they want to play in the playoffs.
Well, Kansas City, like I said, is tied with them. You mentioned Milwaukee a little while ago. Craig Counsell, their manager, left them to go to the Cubs. They were really upset about that because Counsell was considered an elite manager, and the Cubs I think they made him the highest paid manager in the game to come over to them. And the Cubs are playing over 500 balls, so they haven't been a flop, but they're not going to be in the playoffs. It's
Agreed.
been a disappointing season for the Cubs, but they are going to finish with a winning record.
Baltimore beats the Yankees, clinching the playoffs, Jack. That's what they need to do. Yankees are still, of course, in first place. I think all the
Yankees
Yankees
need one game. Magic number one.
Right. Braves beat the Mets 6-5. Michael Harris 3 for 4 with 2 RBIs. The Mets and the Braves, this is a big battle, Jack, here. I mean, the Mets are still, they still got they're still in the playoff race right now, but you got San Diego.
The Mets have an edge in the play. They're more than just in the playoff race, Matt. The Mets are 1 game ahead of the Braves, but in reality, they're 2 games ahead because they got the tiebreaker. The Mets, they got the tiebreaker.
I think they're tied. I think they're also tied with Arizona right now, Jack. So they're not.
Okay, they have the tiebreaker with Arizona. Arizona is a half game behind, and the Mets have the tiebreaker with Arizona too. The Mets are still in a good spot, but if they lose the next 2 at Atlanta, it gets to be nervous time. I'm going to tell you that because they fall a game behind Atlanta. Atlanta does play Kansas City over the weekend, and Kansas City probably needs those games themselves. And so it gets to be very scary. If the Mets can split with Atlanta, they're going to be in good shape going into the final weekend. They can afford to lose 2 out of 3 in this series, and they lost the first game. But, Mac, I don't know about you, but I get the feeling the Mets have been playing so well. They're due for this little bit of a slump, and this would be coming at a disastrous time if they hit a slump, in Arizona, if Atlanta overtakes them and Arizona wins, they could blow it.
It's very possible. Florida beats Minnesota, as you were talking about. Houston gets by Seattle 4-3. Jason Hayward with 2 RBIs. Listen, Houston hasn't been playing great lately either, Jack. I mean, they got by Seattle.
But they clinched it. They clinched the division.
Yes,
I believe. And Seattle, it's frustrating if you're a Seattle fan. They're going to come, in all probability, a little short of making the playoffs. And there are a couple of those games that they really blew that are coming back to haunt them badly. The series they had against the Yankees, the game they blew, base running blunders, just poor fundamental baseball. And it looks like Seattle's going to come a little short of making the playoffs. They still have a shot to get in, but not a good one.
Very, very, very slim. San Diego clinches a playoff. Let's get to San Francisco first. They blow out Arizona. San Francisco got hot way too late, Jack. I mean, San Francisco's playing some very good ball lately.
I don't know they're playing that good, San Francisco. I mean, I don't know what they're doing.
Compared to the beginning of the year, Jack, they are playing.
But they're not even close to being in the hunt for playoffs.
Too late, man. Too late.
Yeah, well, the team that's really surprised has been San Diego. You lose Juan Soto and other key guys, and they're only 2 games behind the Dodgers. Only 2 games. Who would have thought? You would have figured the Dodgers would have put the division away by now.
Yeah.
And there's a chance. I don't know who has the tiebreaker with San Diego and the Dodgers. I don't know. But if they finish tied, imagine San Diego wins the division. I mean, how shocking would that be? But when all's said and done, the Dodgers will probably still eke the division out.
No, we'll see. I mean, that triple play to end the game is one way to end it. I mean, that was a great.
And it clinched the playoff. It clinched the playoff berth for San Diego. The season ended, they'd be the number 1 seed out of the 3 wildcard teams.
I mean, if you're the San Diego team, the manager, you go for that division too, Jack. You go for that to win that division. I mean, you don't just sit down.
Well, it depends, Mac. Yeah, got to be a realist. Yeah, if you have a very logical chance of winning the division, you do. If you go into the final weekend and you're 3 games out, even if you're 1 game out with 3 games to play, and if the Dodgers have the tiebreaker, that means you have to gain 2 games, with 3 left to play, you kind of want to be ready for the playoffs. You really do. At the end, no one's going to remember for the most part anything you've done outside of the playoffs. Unless you're a young team, you're up and coming, and you're playing with house money. I mean, look at all the success the Yankees have had in the regular season, but whenever they get knocked out in the playoffs, no one gives a darn. A couple of seasons ago, Yankees, of course, they won their division. They had a bye during the playoffs. They won a playoff series against Cleveland, then got swept by Houston in the American League Championship Series. Did anyone feel the Yankees had a good year? All we heard was Keith Engel, Dr. Semendinger come on saying Brian Cashman should get fired. What a failure the Yankees are. Their mission statement is either you win it all or the year's been a complete loss. So who cared that they won their division at the end, Mac? Even in 2004, when the Red Sox came back and beat the Yankees 4 straight, erased the 3-0 deficit, no one remembers the Yankees won the Eastern Division. No one gives a darn at the end.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think if it was a team that wasn't the Yankees, like Baltimore, like the Mets, they would be happy if they win the division. So
I think in the case of the Mets, I could have seen that, but if the Phillies went there and the Mets were battling for the division title, in a case like that, I agree with you.
Oakland A's owner writes a letter of apology to the A's fans for moving to Las Vegas. Of course, that hasn't been really settled yet. They're going to be playing the triple A field for the next few years, the way it looks like. He said he tried to come to agreement with city officials to build a new stadium in Oakland. That Oakland's reputation has been that they have the worst park in the MLB. He says over 18 years proposing 5 different area locations, and deals came up short, Jack. So I was watching a person, Oakland sports commentator, and he went off. And he said, you say you proposed 5 things. There was no real proposal. There was no really work done on this. You're a billionaire that got handed the keys to the car after your father retired or passed away. You never had to work a day in your life. The 5 deals you talked about, no groundbreaking thing was done. In fact, you've never even came on and talked to anybody about what you're doing here, but you're going to write a letter of apology. He took the paper out, he crumbled it up, rips it up, he throws it down, and of course he's upset. And he said there is a way. There are other people that are in Oakland that are rich that have wanted to buy the team, but you have not wanted to sell the team, and they are also multimillionaires. And there is ways to make money in Oakland. You just got to do it correctly and stop pinching pennies. I mean, he went off, Jack. He went off about this. So Oakland A's fans at the game started yelling, of course, different things at the game. It's not the A's fault, right? The owner wants to move to Vegas. And again, there has been no agreement as to today, agreement with Vegas. So I don't know what's going to happen with the Oakland A's, Jack.
Mac, I have mixed feelings on it because sometimes you have an owner who does everything he can, but it's the city officials who are stubborn. And also, they tried to pass a bill where the people voted on it to see whether taxpayers' money should go to a new stadium. Now, a lot of times the public, the voters, they vote against the taxpayers' money going. But if the team is truly important enough to you, I would vote to keep them. I would vote to keep the Yankees in New York and the Mets. I mean, I would vote for that. I wouldn't say, oh, my taxpayers' money isn't going to go to players' salaries, this and that. It's a big part of the culture of the city. Sure. And, I think the 2 most famous cases in sports where owners move teams, Walt O'Malley with the 1950s Brooklyn Dodgers. They wanted to keep the Dodgers in Brooklyn, but Robert Moses, who was the powerful guy in charge of building this and that, said, yeah, we'll build you a new stadium, but it was going to be where Shea Stadium was. And Walter O'Malley's thing was, how can we be called the Brooklyn Dodgers playing in Queens? They didn't want to take like the Navy shipyard, which is an area which would have been feasible to build a stadium there. The Dodgers were going to stay in Brooklyn.
Right.
And they got stubborn, with the Dodgers. So Walter O'Malley moved the team. And then there's Art Modell with Cleveland. They had a dilapidated, beat-up stadium in Cleveland. And Art Modell says, wait a second, the city's accommodating the Indians. They're accommodating the Cavaliers, and so on. But they're leaving me in this old stadium that has no modern amenities, that's broken down. I'm trying to negotiate with these guys. They're not moving on anything. And finally, he had it there. He's going to leave. And he took the team to Baltimore. The question's this, Mac. If it's your team, should you sell it? You can always sell the team. Right, you can always sell it. And this is where I'm conflicted. If it was me, would I sell the team so I can keep it in Cleveland? Okay, if I were Art Modell. But Art Modell didn't take the name of the Cleveland Browns. Like when the Baltimore Colts went to Indianapolis, they took the name.
Right.
For example, when the LA Rams went to St. Louis, they were called the St. Louis Rams.
Right.
He kind of left them the name. So I have mixed feelings on it.
I think that the point that I agree with is when a son, daughter take over a team that they didn't have to build and put together, there's not as much heart in that team as much as, say, George Steinbrenner had with being in the New York Yankees as a son. I think Steinbrenner has a lot more skin in the game. I think the Oakland A's owner, that passed away, I think he had a lot more skin in the game. Maybe he makes a deal that maybe they could have worked out. We don't know what the negotiations were. Maybe he just wanted to go to Vegas. Maybe this is what he wants. He wants to go to Vegas. Maybe the fan support is dwindling because you have a crap team. So the guy's a billionaire, Jack. It's not like he can't afford salaries. He's and I don't know. I don't know the full story. All I know is that I think if maybe Dad was still alive or Dad was running the team, maybe an agreement could have been reached.
Well, let me throw this at you, Mac. The Oakland Raiders left to go to Las Vegas.
Yes.
Why did the Oakland Raiders leave? Weren't they a very popular team in Oakland? Didn't they sell the games out?
Yes.
And what is the logic? Unless the owner is so selfish, he wants to live in Las Vegas. Because keep that in mind. If your team's in Oakland and you want to be involved, you want to go to the office, you want to work, you want to this and that, oversee a team, you got to live in Oakland. You got to live in Oakland. And a lot of these owners, in all due respect to Oakland, most people would rather live, I believe, in Las Vegas, given a choice, than Oakland. And this isn't to say Oakland isn't a beautiful city, but if you don't have real roots in the area, Las Vegas, would more likely than not be a place of choice as opposed to, because it's a glamour city. Certain cities are glamour cities where, the owners would enjoy living there full time.
And not only that, the taxes of living in California are unbelievable. But I know when you get a new stadium, you get that tax break that will come in. And maybe that's the sticking point. I don't know. I just know that it seems to me that when you have an owner, again, that has been with the building of a team, it's more him. It's more about him wanting to do this for the area, and it's more about him. When I see in every business where kids take it over, and sometimes they just ruin it because they don't know what they're doing. So anyway, Jack, very, very, very sad to me to see the Oakland A's leave Oakland like it was the Oakland Raiders. Folks, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you for tuning in. Tonight we do have the National Professional Sports Show on tonight. Wednesday's full on Roku. Stick with the Roku channel. You can't go wrong. Thanks to Jack and all his what I want to say, Jack, all your analyzation. Is that a word? Is analyzation a word?
I don't know.
Okay, well, I'd ask you. You're a writer. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. Maybe I just invented a new word. Folks, have a great day. Enjoy your Wednesday.